Ah, Dragon Quest. The turn-based RPG series of all turn-based RPGs. I'm somehow both somewhat versed and also completely new to the series as a whole, but I have some history with it, though not much. Back when I was a wee child, like many other children across the US, my family got my siblings and I a Nintendo Power magazine subscription for a good bit. Since Nintendo Power has been out of print for some time now, God, I'm old. I'll explain the concept to the uninitiated. Basically, you paid what was probably equivalent to a Netflix subscription, and every month you got a physical magazine book printed and mailed to your mailbox filled with all the Nintendo news and previews you could ask for, at least as a child. If I recall correctly, this might have been how I originally learned about Chibi Robo Park Patrol, but I'm not sure. We later swapped Nintendo Power for Game Informer for a good bit there, so I can't really differentiate what gaming news I learned from one and what I learned from the other. But now that I say this, why would I learn about the obscure Nintendo Walmart exclusive DS game at GameStop's news shop and not the precursor to the Nintendo Direct in print format? Where was I? Oh yeah, every Nintendo Power magazine also came with a unique poster for your wall if you're a cool guy, and untouched in the book if you're a collector. Now, the posters are the important part of this, because at some point during the DS era of Nintendo, there was a poster for the game Dragon Quest Heroes Rocket Slime, a Dragon Quest spin-off game from the Nintendo DS. I remember being a kid, seeing this poster for an anime-ass RPG kind of looking game that plays on my DS with a super cute slime monster and being like, whoa! I gotta play that! So thenforth, I made it my mission to forget about it and never ask for it, ever. Yeah, I saw this poster for a game that looked exactly my style and never bothered seeking it out, just leaving it as a, that's cool, and then immediately going back to the standard Pokemon, Animal Crossing, Mario repeat. Funnily enough, this actually happened a couple times, where I'd see either a poster or an advertisement for a game that looked like I'd enjoy it, and then never seek it out until it's out of print. It happened with Mushroom and the Spore Wars, Chibi Robo Park Patrol, hell, even Shadow the Hedgehog. Actually, Shadow's a funny story. It was the only one I had a reason for never asking for, which was because I was 9 years old and the game was rated E10+, and I didn't think I was old enough for it. Keep in mind, my family consistently got the Smash Bros. Games, which are notoriously T-rated, and I'm pretty sure I turned 10 later that year. So what my child brain was on, I really don't know, but now it's my life's mission to play Shadow the Hedgehog eventually. But anyways, back on track. So I was first introduced to the concept of Dragon Quest through the Nintendo Power Rocket Slime poster advert, fell in love instantly, then forgot about its existence. It wouldn't be until I was a teenager that I would get properly introduced to the series in the most optimal newcomer-friendly way. I bought a physical NES card of the original Dragon Warrior and played it for 5 minutes before the novelty of playing an NES game as a teenager in the 2010s wore off. I do still own this cartridge, and it does still save, which is cool. Will I ever actually play it? Probably not. I mean, Squeenix literally has a modern HD 2D remake of the game coming out anyways, and I'll be very surprised if somehow the NES original ends up being the better user experience post-release. My next opportunity for questing my dragons would come one fateful day in 2017, when I was browsing the amiibo section of my local game shop and learned of an upcoming 3DS version of Dragon Quest VIII, along with an existing Dragon Quest VII version that already exists. At first, my monkey brain instant gratification brain wanted me to get Dragon Quest VII since I could get it now instead of waiting for Dragon Quest VIII to release, but by some cosmic coincidence I was there exactly 1 week before the Dragon Quest VIII 3DS game came out, so the shiny brain took over at the thought of getting a sick pre-order bonus with the game that comes out in a week. So I ended up leaving there with a Roy amiibo and a pre-order for Dragon Quest VIII. I have the most experience with the 3DS version of the game, but even still, I never got super far into it. The shiny hunting grind in Pokemon Sun, along with being in college, ended up taking precedent. Also, I think the Switch coming out with Breath of the Wild also impacted my playtime of Dragon Quest VIII, probably, definitely. Now, for today, I wanted to take a proper look at the game. Or at least from a primary gameplay perspective, or rather, just a first impressions based on the opening segments of the game. Kinda like if it was a game demo, but in video review format. Yeah, with Dragon Quest VIII, there's many options for which version to play, and picking the right one can be tricky. There's the PS2 original, the demo of the expansion, the full standalone expansion, the 3DS version, and the mobile version. With so many differing versions, it can be daunting to decide which one to play, which is why for today I will be playing all of them. Yep, that's right, every version of Dragon Quest VIII that I own. Since these are all fundamentally the same game, I'll be playing them concurrently and noting the version differences along the way. The beginning is surprisingly where we see some stark changes over time. In the PS2 original, there's this whole cutscene sequence with like a text-based poem of sorts telling a sort of legend that sets up the world, followed by a shot of an opening field with hijinks surrounding the main starting cast of characters. Peculiarly enough though, this would be the only version of the game to feature that opening poem legend scene, as the 3DS version skips right to the main cast hijinks. And the PS2 standalone expansion goes one step further and goes with a completely different art style, setting, characters, monsters, battle mechanics. It almost feels like a completely unrelated game. But we can throw those worries to rest, because the year was 2005, and we all know lying had yet to be legalized for recreational use at that point. So I like to chop all the differences up to it being a time skip forward, and it's probably after the end of the game. So I'm sure we'd learn of these protagonists if we played through the ending of the main game, and I guess to avoid spoilering myself on the ending, I'll end the discussion of the expansion here and focus primarily on the main game going forward. Back to Dragon Quest, after the opening cutscene we basically get right into a tutorial battle, but all you can really do is spam your regular attacks since you're level 1, so after a quick button mash you get another cutscene! This one's more of an opening credits than story relevance, so there's not really much to note here plot-wise, so we'll just skip right to the next sequence. Afterwards, both the PS2 original and 3DS version essentially take the same path, and both you then just explore the town if you want, get a call to action, and embark on your first quest to the first dungeon of the game, the Waterfall Cave. Now, you could just waltz over to the dungeon, doing a couple battles along the way that happen upon you, and then begin what is relatively a straightforward dungeon experience, but then you'd be underleveled and lacking skills necessary for survival. So it's time for the moment you've been waiting for! Level grinding. Yep, that's right. If you want to not get your ass handed to you, it's probably best to do as many random encounters as you can so you can get better gear, learn new skills, and level up. Which means spinning around in circles in the PS2 version and just walking around aimlessly into enemies in the 3DS version. I found that leveling to level 5 before entering the cave left me in a good enough state, with the focus on putting skill points into Humanity for Yangus and Courage into the hero to unlock the Whistle command for Yangus, which summons a random encounter and makes grinding a genuine breeze, and for the Zoom spell for Hero, which lets you essentially fast travel to previously visited towns, making the journey from the Fodder Wall Cave back to the town pretty trivial. Which I guess now that I think about it, only really impacts the PS2 version a lot, since that version has random encounters, and the 3DS version has overworld encounters, so I guess on the 3DS version you could just walk back unopposed, but it's easier to just cast Zoom and be on your way. Oh, also, I found the 3DS version to be more beginner friendly in a way, or at least to have some alterations to make the game more friendly to the player. In the 3DS version, you get a full heal on level up, and the first town's inn only costs 2 gold compared to the PS2's version's 6 gold. So in the 3DS version, you'll end up with a good chunk of change money-wise, whereas in the original, since you have to pay 6 gold every time you want to heal at the inn, it'll add up and you'll end up with only a modest sum of gold pieces of gold in comparison. Once you're ready for the Waterfall dungeon, it's actually very straightforward. You just kind of move forward, do a couple battles, make some friends, and zip zoom, next thing you know you're getting baby's first boss fight against the merman water lizard monster thing. The fight really wasn't that bad. I ended up just spamming the default attack and healing when I needed to, and next thing I know the battle's over. I could have been over-leveled, but also I don't see how my strategy would have changed much had I been a lower level. At this point, you don't really have access to many combat options. After a hop, skip, and a zip zoom back to town, you wrap up the beginning quest, warn against throwing things into the waterfall lest they open an old wound, and then end up embarking towards the next location in your journey with the Cursed King to find the dastardly bastard Golmagus. This will be where I end the game coverage to keep things light and simple. Overall, the beginning segments of this game were very charming, pretty fun, and overall it makes me want to play more. So I think that puts it in a good spot. I'm not much for review numbers, but if it means anything to you, I give the opening sequences and beginning sections of Dragon Quest VIII a 4 out of 5. Whatever that means.